Josh, let me know when to start. You might be on mute.
Nope, you're good, Rhonda. Go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Rhonda Devine, and I'm with the Office of Finance and Operations, Division of District Support, Branch Manager for the Student Tracking and Data Branch. Joining me today, I have our Director, Donna Duncan, our Associate Director, Jesse Carlton, our Executive Advisor, Matt Ross, Funding and Reporting Branch Manager, Che Ritter, along with members from my team, Brad Kennedy, Josh Whitlow, and Laura Lohman. And of course, our attendance auditors are also available and will be sending me answers through text in case a question arises that I don't know the answer to. Today's meeting will be recorded, and we have the question and answers document on our webpage on the KDE website under Student Enrollment, COVID-19. And we'll have this Q&A along with the last two meetings available there as well, along with a recording. Next slide, please. Today's discussion, we're going to be talking about amended and original calendar submission, just giving a reminder, NTI approval process, variable calendar, and alternative calendar schedules. And this is just a friendly reminder. We wanted to make sure that you had the link and that to submit your calendars electronically through the KDE web application and the links provided. And the submission date, we've extended it to July 31st. The NTI process for approval. There have been many districts sending in their amended calendar before the NTI approval process has been filed. There isn't anything to stop the submissions in the system, but we won't be able to process them until this NTI process is complete. I sent the emergency non-traditional instruction guidance document when I sent out the reminder for this meeting along with this PowerPoint. If you click on the link, there is that I have on this PowerPoint, it's a step-by-step guidance that will take you through the entire process. Districts need to get their participation rate approved first and then get that over to OCIS and have it verified with Wendy Newton before sending the amended calendar. So please read through the guidance and follow the steps before you send the amended calendar. And I also have included Wendy's email as well. Variable instruction calendar, we've gotten a lot of questions on this, and so I wanted to talk through just a few things about it today, and then I'm sure there'll be questions at the end that we can talk about. The variable instruction calendar waives the 170 days of instruction if the students start after the first Monday closest to August 24th, which would be August 26th this year, so on that date or after. As long as you've got to get the 1,062 hours of instruction. With the students, you can't round up, and the whole point is getting that 1,062 and waiving the 170 amount of days. Next slide, please. In this slide, we've gotten some definitions and the meaning that go along with the variable calendar. Variable student instruction means the 1,062, and it's got to be adopted by your local Board of Education, and it's considered proportionally equivalent to the 170 student attendance days and calendar days for the purpose of instruction, and that also includes your employment contracts. And I had a really good example this morning, so I wanted to share that. The example that we looked at this morning, they're going to start after August 24th, and they have 162 days of instruction. They have 7-hour days of instruction, and of course their day that is longer because they've got lunch and recess and homeroom, but they have 162 days, which is equivalent to the 170. So if the teacher contract is 185, then that means they only have 15 more days to fulfill their contract. So if they've worked 162 days, then that would be the same as 170, and then they've got 5 work days, 4 professional development days, 4 holidays, an opening day and a closing day, which brings you to the additional 15 days. And I have a DPP that's used this calendar in the past, and he said that he's going to be sending it to me, and I can send that out to everyone if you want to look and see. They've used it the last 2 or 3 years, and just to help a district if they want to see kind of how they've gotten it set up. And with this, you always have to make sure that everything lines up with your local board. You have approval, and that everyone in the district is buying into the idea, and that you've got everyone notified of your plan. Next slide, please. Sorry, my dishwasher is singing. Slide 7. This one is the schedule model ideas, and we've talked about these last time we got together, and these are just kind of a graphic organizer of some of the different models of schedules that people have talked about that they're going to be using this year. So I want to just look at them just to give districts an idea of some other plans that they may not have thought of. Next slide, please. Model 1 is a schedule rotation. So in this one, you could use either like morning and evening if you wanted to, or you could rotate the days. This shows Group A on Monday, Wednesday, and Group B on Tuesday, Thursday, and then Friday, everyone working online, which gives you less students in the building, less students on the bus. They can do this alternating weeks. You could also have projects and different types of assessments that they do on Friday. During the school week, those kids in the school could eat in the classroom. This would also allow for some co-teaching and team teaching opportunities. So this is one idea that a DPP and I talked about. Next slide, please. Model 2 is looking at some more flexibility. So you've got the time of the day can be flexible. The time of the day could vary. You could have kids in seats at school or kids at home with live streaming, and it's got to be planned with students assigned and dedicated time and digital interaction and a lot of performance based. So I thought this was an interesting model as well. So you could have a teacher teaching to kids in a seat, and then at the same time you've got kids at home learning and watching. And the next one, please. And model 3, this hybrid model where you have Monday, Wednesday in Group A, and then also half of the students at school and half at home. Tuesday, Thursday, Group B, and then Friday, everyone online. It's kind of similar to the other model. This could also be done morning and evening, which I think there are a few districts that are planning on doing that as well. And then the next one is basically just online. It's expanding the virtual performance-based. It's really targeted more towards your middle and high school. And the time of day can vary. It's very flexible in your arrangements with your grouping and your teachers and the days of the week. And it could be done regionally. You could even have a course catalog, and the course is offered through a network with the Kentucky Digital Learning Guidelines. So this was also a really good model. And then the next slide. And these are just, the next 2 slides are really just some typical classroom, how you can arrange your grouping so that this is a 10-foot spacing in between students. And then on the next slide, it's a 6 feet of spacing between your students. And we are in the process that Healthy at School coming together with a plan, and we're actually reviewing one as we speak and getting that together. And soon as we get done reviewing it, and we're trying to get it to where it'll work more realistically with our school system. And then we're going to be sending it over to the governor as soon as we get that. We're hopefully going to be doing that Monday of next week. So on that note, I'll take any questions, and I'm sure we can talk a little bit deeper about the variable calendars if anyone has any questions.
Okay, Rhonda, we got I'm getting some feedback. Sorry, we're getting some questions through the chat on the side, and I'll go through some of them first, and then we'll go over to the questions from the Google document that some people have already put in.
Okay.
All right, so first question is, will these models meet the criteria for the 1,062-hour requirement? And I believe what they're saying is, with the students being virtual, and half of them there, you're going to have different groups doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go ahead and jump in and say, that's one of the things we're continuing to work through of how exactly that's going to be calculated. Because you can't, 100%, verify that they're working, in the example where they were live streaming, that's an easy one to do. But, at KDE, we're still looking at how all of that is going to calculate. Unless you have a different answer to that.
No, and really with all of this, we've got an old system with, set in one way that's not really equipped yet for all of this innovative scheduling and planning and things. So we are at KDE trying to get our attendance kind of up to speed with the different inventive ways of scheduling. So I think we're coming really close to where we've gotten that set, and we'll be able to send out some information as soon as we have that approved and verified.
And I think that's a great segue into the next question that says, how would we maintain confidentiality if we live stream for students at home and conducting an in-person classroom? We cannot control who is watching at home, seeing things happening in the classroom that is confidential. And I think, once again, that's a model of an option, that they were kind of trying to work through. And it's questions like, that the district's going to have to determine if that would be right for them to follow that model. And it may be a question of that confidentiality that you think in your district, that's not something you want to pursue. So, all right. Can recess/physical activity time be included in instructional time if documented in the school wellness policy?
That, I believe, would be more of a question for our curriculum office, because we don't get involved in that in our part. So if you want to email me directly, I can send you the email to the people that you should speak with for that.
Right. And when we figure out who that is, we'll put it on the question and answer also, so everybody can see what department at KDE that is. So, okay, bear with me a second. I'm going to hop over to our Google questions that came in. Okay, do we have to get alternate calendars approved by our board? Can we not just treat that as an amended calendar if the need arises?
If you start off with a regular traditional calendar and then you decide, oh, we're going to do this instead, you can then send in, when you have your amended calendar at the end of the year, that will show what you really did for the year. Then that you can just have it at that time. You don't have to get it. You probably need to get things approved before you do it through your local board, but you can just send in an amended calendar to us.
I think also the board, and you want to make sure the board and your parents are aware of the change that's happening. Even when you do an amended calendar, during the year, I think sometimes they're made aware of what's going on. So, okay. Next question. Do districts currently using online registration use it for preschools as well?
I don't see why you couldn't use it for preschool. that would be a question for, well, I don't see why you couldn't use it for preschool. It should be fine. We don't really, for SAR purposes or our office, we don't really look closely at preschool, but Andrea Bartholomew, I believe, from KDE would be someone that you could reach out to for that question, but I'm sure that you could use it for preschool.
Right, and I think online registration is something that's used by, lots of districts, and you may want to reach out to other districts in your area who are using it to see how they use it for preschool and if it works for them. Okay, let's see. Can the Board of Education amend the 2021 original calendars to meet the requirements for the variable instructional calendar and be granted the flexibility per KRS 157-350? Okay, that's a lot in that question. Let's go over that one again.
And I looked at the 350, which is about funding and proportional time for the year, and I'm going to say yes, because if you start school after August 26th, well, actually August 24th, the closest Monday, which would be August 26th this year, and you follow the plan for a variable calendar, then yes, you would have all of those same benefits. But now if you started in July and then changed your mind, you couldn't do that. But if you don't start school, it's after August 26th, and then you start school, you reach your 1,062 in less than 170 days, your teachers work the additional 15 days for the year, then yes, that would fall under the variable calendar. And you'd be entitled to that.
Okay. Let's see. All right. And this is, I'm not really good with this. This is a CFR number. So Jay, perk your ears up. 29 CFR 541.303A exempts teachers from overtime pay. How are we being told that teachers' contracts are proportional? Why would they get credit for extra time worked when they are overtime exempt by federal law?
We're not, we're not asking them to work overtime or over the 185 days. So if they're working the 7-hour day and then they're putting in the same amount of 1,062 hours as they have been, I don't see where that would be overtime. Am I missing the question?
No, I think that's right. Che, Matt, is there anything you'd want to add to that? I don't think they are. I don't think they are getting credit for extra time worked, because even if the day is a little bit longer, it's still within that 7 hours that's considered that work day. So,
instructional time, yes.
Right. Okay. Do we have guidance on attendance policies for COVID? Will there be new codes used for COVID-related illnesses similar to flu?
We actually have been talking about that, and right now we just have the flu codes, and I've been in meetings with Angie McDonald, and we have been talking about how to code it, what would be the way to do that, because a lot of the flu-like symptoms could be COVID or could be the flu, and then we'd have to have proof that it was COVID to actually put it in the system correctly. So we're still kind of working through some of those questions and how can we do this logically and get it in the system accurately. So when we can get that rolled out, I'll definitely send out an email with guidance.
Okay, let's see. Please clarify the impact that using the variable instructional calendar model will have on funding for a district. And I think the point of the variable instructional calendar is to not have an impact on that funding.
Exactly. And we talked about it's the intent is not to harm the districts, and we're trying to be flexible where we can actually help the districts meet they're 1,062, and by waiving that 170, and Che is on the line as well. We have been talking about how we're going to be looking at that a little bit closer as well.
All right, just kind of a general question here. What are other districts planning to do in regards to the 2021 calendar? And I think we've heard lots of different options, haven't we, Rhonda?
We've got a lot of districts that are looking at that variable calendar. And we've also had a couple that really wanted to get 100 days in early. It really just depends on the district and where you live and what your area, what people want. I think a lot of people are doing surveys, and they're surveying their parents, trying to find out how many people feel safe to have their child come back to school and how many people don't, and what do they want to see in their community. So I think a lot of that scheduling and timing is really depending on your community. But I see a lot of districts moving towards the variable calendar. At least I've been getting a lot of questions about how to set it up and wanting to know what other people's schedule looks like. That's why I'm going to share that one calendar as soon as he sends it to me, so that people can see a district that's been using the variable calendar for the last couple of years, and we can share it out with the other districts.
All right. How will ADA be calculated with potential distance learning students this coming school year?
Would that be, Jesse, correct me, wouldn't that be more of like a performance-based, when they pass the course, they'll get one full day of attendance?
I think they're asking, I'm sorry to cut you off, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I think they're asking, with all of these different options of people rotating in and out, and how is that half day, whole day going to go into the ADA calculation?
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now, best answer we have is we're working on that. We're trying to figure that out from our standpoint at KDE. We're working through the options of what we need to do and how we need to make that work in the system, and with tracking the students and making that calculation. So you'll continue to hear more from us on that as we work through that. We're bringing in different groups to get their perspective on it, how it would affect the students and how it would affect the ADA. So stay tuned on that one. So, okay, and I think this one may be similar to that. It says, if a district decides to rotate a percentage of students each day to comply with social distancing, can the district mark all students on those days as NTI to accumulate the same instructional minutes? And I think the problem with that is, in the past, NTI hasn't been used for groups of students, right, Rhonda? It's an all or none. So that's also another thing we're having to look at of how we're going to track these students that are in these different groups, if you will. Okay. What do we do if we have numerous amounts of students sign up for home hospital with doctor notes because of COVID-19?
What do they do?
Yeah, I think.
Well, they're going to have to be, and this is something where they're going to have their. I foresee seeing this a lot as well, and just being equipped with having a teacher that's going to be able to handle that load of kids. And now that you can do it telephonically or virtually, I think it's going to make that a little bit easier to handle, where the teachers can call instead of having to physically go to each home, make the call, work with them over the phone, work with them virtually, and then they'll be paid for the home hospital addition for that student, which should compensate with the amount of teachers that you're going to need to handle that. And really, there won't be any way to tell until you see how many you have coming in.
Okay. All right. Okay, this is a longer question. So our goal as a district is to get our kids in the building for instruction and not have to cut student days. I understand that is touch and go this year. We do not want to increase minutes in the school day for the 2021 school year until we have to do so.
Mhm.
If the state is once again forced to turn to NTI due to issues with COVID, will school districts operating on variable instruction be able to increase minutes within the school year while the school year is underway?
You can't have more than 7 hours of instruction per day. So is that really the question? So if you're working through the year and then we have another outbreak and everyone has to go to NTI, then you'll get the 7 hours just as you would if you were using the variable calendar, because you'll already be 7-hour days of instruction. Even if you had a traditional calendar, you would then get the 7 hours as well, because we offered it last time, I'm sure, that they would do the same type of accommodation for NTI days.
Right, and I know that normally, you can't change increase those minutes during the school year, and if this person is alluding to all of the NTI days going to 7 hours this year, that was something that was done just for this year. So I don't know if that would be, we would have to look into that to see if that would be something else that would be done again next year.
Well, and just as with this last year, we've had to make all these changes, and right now where it's just 10 days, that's all you can have, and it goes by your day of minutes in the classroom. So we'd have to bring this whole thing forward again and have everything, back up and approved. So it really just depends on what we can get approved, and we were lucky that we got this worked out for this year. I don't see why they wouldn't do it again, but I don't know.
Okay. All right. Would starting on the Tuesday after Labor Day still count as the waiver for the 170 days since it's into the next month?
That doesn't matter as long as you are after the Monday closest to the 24th in August. As long as you start a day after that day or after, then you fall into the guidelines for the variable instructional calendar. So you'll be fine.
All right. Okay. Where is legislature on making changes to the number of NTI days we are going to be allowed to use in 2021? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we still stand at 10 possible NTI days.
At this time, there are no changes in NTI. It's 10 days and it goes by your amount of instruction for the day. So there are no, and I haven't heard of any rumors of anything other than that, going back to our original NTI schedule.
Right. Matt, Che, you want to jump in here? I think I may have heard in one of the superintendent's messages, the commissioners say that we haven't done anything official yet, but we're working to make sure however many, if the districts need additional NTI days, we will be able to do something similar this year to grant more.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Right.
Oh,
My
okay.
understanding is there's nothing official. You're right, Rhonda. There's nothing official on the books yet, but we recognize that that's something that's going to be needed, and they're going to work towards it. So there's nothing official yet, but that's what we're working towards, to have more.
And just as this year went, we're not trying to harm the districts. We're trying to help through a very difficult time. So if it's something that's needed and necessary, we always try to come to and get that worked out so that people would have what they need to, because it's all about the kids. And so we're here to support the best that we can.
Right. Okay, another very specific scenario here. If a district chooses an A/B rotation, and if the kids who are at home are counted as virtual and performance-based for ADA, how would primary students, and they mean primary as in
grades 1 through
grades 1 through 10. Yes, how would primary students show a passing grade since they are standards-based and assessed on many individual levels? There really isn't a pass-fail when it comes to primary.
We don't have any way for the standard-based grading to work and fit into the performance-based the way we track attendance and the way we have the pass fail, it doesn't work with standard-based grading, and there's really no answer for that because it just doesn't work. You can't. There's no way to measure it in a pass-fail way. So that
And this is one of those scenarios that we're looking at because we recognize that, you know, virtual and performance-based, that isn't an option because of that standards-based grading. So.
And really, how can you measure if a kid has mastered a skill without having the hands-on? That's why the performance-based works very well with middle and high school, but it's a challenge with the primary.
Yes. All right. Transportation funding, Che. I know that with the variable calendar option, it allows for proportionally equivalent funding for SEEK. Does that also include proportionally equivalent funding for transportation, since days transported will be fewer and play into the funding formula for transportation?
Correct. We're still looking into that.
Okay.
That's it gets a little more complicated in transportation, but that's what we're currently looking into. And
Yes.
We'll have an answer soon on that.
Yeah, we raised that question about, it's been a few days, so we should hopefully get that answered.
Okay, I think that's all I have right now from over on the Google side. Do we have any others back in the chat that we want to go through? Maybe let me get back over there. Sorry. Okay. Will Infinite Campus be able to help us keep attendance on distance students and on-site students at the same time?
Well, that's what we're doing right now, working with Infinite Campus to see how are we going to meet the needs of all of this innovative scheduling. And I'm not sure, we think we've come up with a solution, but it's not been approved yet. So we think we've got it worked out, and we will let everyone know as soon as we get approval.
Okay. So. And I will say Infinite Campus has been reaching out to our cases team down the hall with some options and new functionality that they're working through, because, you know, it's not just us here in Kentucky that's dealing with this. You know, they're trying to get something into their system for everyone to use. So we're working on it. All right. As we look into the next year, the guidance documents on reopening the state, we need to look at attendance policies. Any thought on this as we follow CDC guidelines and health department involvement?
Well, we are working very closely, and we have that safe to school. We're working with the CDC guidelines, working with DPH, and we're trying to take some of their recommendations that they're really saying that they'd like to see, and we're trying to make it work in the school setting and get something in place that's actually realistic with teaching and educating students. So we are working with them, and the plan that they've put together, we're actually looking at it tomorrow. And if we can get that approved and comfortable and something that is workable with the school systems, we're going to send that on to the governor. So that's actually happening as we speak.
Okay. Can we move to ADM?
We have talked about that, and it's a complete revamp of absolutely everything that we've gotten together. So at this point in time, we're really sticking with our attendance model and our attendance calculation and focusing on that, as opposed to going membership, which would be a completely different, that would actually change everything. So I don't foresee that to happen, but I mean, of course, we've looked into a few different models. So, you know, at this point, anything's possible, but I would say probably not at this point in time.
Okay. I think Che has answered this question, but I want to go ahead and get it back out there since somebody put it in. How is transportation going to be funded with less kids riding the bus? Districts will still have the same expenses, fuel maintenance and bus payments, etc. Will virtual days count as riding the bus with regard to funding?
To be determined soon.
Okay. Right. Okay. And I think we're another question we've done about how will attendance be determined by these different models. Is there any discussion going on about letting us still use 1819 or 1920 ADA for 2021 instead of suffering from the loss in attendance we will most likely have in 2021? I don't know if that's to go to the Chase side. So
yeah,
sorry,
and that's something that we have been talking about. And as a matter of fact, Jesse came up with a great plan that would give that opportunity. So that's another, we've got all these questions and all these different ideas we're actually bringing forward to see what we can and can't get approved. And that is one of the models that where we could go back and use 1819 or 1920. But we're just right now, I mean, we just don't have anything other than what we've said approved, but it is definitely one that we've looked at and considering. I could say that, right, Jesse? It was actually your idea, so.
It's not all my idea. All right. Can you start on August 24th, which is the Monday this year, with the variable calendar? And I think that's right. That's the Monday closest to the 26th.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I think the 26th this year is on a Wednesday. So the Monday closest to it is that 24th.
Yes, the 24th.
Okay. All right. To take advantage of the variable instructional calendar, can we treat it as an amended calendar? That correct? Would we need to submit a new calendar if we've already submitted our calendar?
No, they will not need to do that. They can just send in an amended. And that maybe if they have, we talked about having maybe 2 or 3 different calendars already kind of in your back pocket and ready to go. That could be one of them. If you already have it approved, that would be great. And then you could just use it for the year and send in your amended at the end of the year, and there won't be any problems at all with that.
Okay, we're going back to the time worked for the teachers for the alternate calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we could only pay teachers for days worked, not time worked. If teachers are contracted in our district to work 188 days, are you saying with the alternative calendar, they would automatically get credit for the 170 days like students and then only have to work an additional 18 days? That
is what we're saying, because it's proportional. So if it's proportional to 170, whether they come 162 or 164 or 158 is proportional to 170. So whatever they have over and above, most contracts are 185, but if yours is 188, then it would be the additional 18 days along with the days the kids are in school. So yes.
Okay, this is kind of, I don't know if this is a legal question or not, Matt. If using the variable instructional calendar, then does the local board need to revise contracts to 15 days over the instructional days taught, or is it an option of the board to keep it at 185 contract days? I would think that would be their local board's decision whether they wanted to revamp that.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
They can leave it as it is, or they can adjust their calendars or their contracts. I think that is a local board decision, and local board, their policy to set.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Josh has responded in here for everybody who isn't maybe going through the question and answers that he's gotten some responses from districts via email that online registration works great for preschool. Great. So if you're questioning that, there's that. We have another question about, will NTI days count as 7 hours like this year, or just your regular instructional days? I think we went over that.
Yeah, at this point in time, it's going to be just whatever your instructional day is what you'll get for an NTI, unless they make the changes where you get more than 10, and that would be something that they could or could not change as well. And that's really out of our control if they change that.
Okay, will districts be given guidance on how to set up these models in IC in regards to the period schedules, student schedules, attendance, etc.?
Yes. I don't know when because it's already June, but as soon as we can get some clarification, I would say yes. I don't know if we need to do it through teams. I don't know if we need to do it regionally, but that is something that we'll put together because we're going to need training. Absolutely.
All right. So home hospital can be done virtually next year, and you don't have to make a teacher make the weekly home visits.
But
Correct?
they do have to telephonically or virtually contact the student, work with the student, just as they would if they came to their house. So they knocked on their door and sat on the couch and talked to the child and worked with them. They have to do the same thing, but they can do it telephonically or virtually.
Right.
So it's still, they're still contacting and working with that child.
It's one of the changes we got through the legislature this year. So yes.
Yes.
Okay. If we have kids excluded from school due to contact tracing, they won't qualify for home hospital. Is that being considered in the attendance conversation? If we aren't performance-based, they would be absent and not funded.
So this is Matt Ross. I have a question. Why a child that is exposed to communicable disease wouldn't potentially be eligible for home hospital? I think the reg provides for children with communicable disease. I realize they may not have it, but if a health professional is saying they may not attend school because they've potentially been exposed for a certain period of time, I think we'll have to look at that, but I wouldn't see why they couldn't be considered eligible for home and hospital.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. Don't lose my place here. Okay. When can the additional NTI days and hours be decided so we can make that decision?
Well, right now I would go with it's not going to happen and just go with the 10 days and the amount of time for your instruction that you have for the day. And that's what I would plan on, because at this point in time, that's all we have. And I don't foresee any changes to that unless we have some kind of pandemic whips back up and we have a lot of concerns, because at this point in time we only have the 10 and it goes by the amount of instructional time in the day that you have right now.
Okay. Let's see. What is the actual first day that we can have students if we revert to less than 170 days? And I think that's that August 24th. There you go.
Yes.
All right.
It's the Monday closest to August 26th of any school year. This year it's August 24th, which is a Monday.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be Monday. It could be Tuesday, or it could be Thursday. It could be the week after. It just has to be it has to be that Monday or after, because that was another question people had.
Okay, there's another home hospital question, but I think it's been answered up above or here. Okay, will day treatment centers be forced to delay their start times as well due to not being able to meet current CDC guidelines?
I don't know why day treatment would be different from a school as far as seating arrangements and so forth. So I don't know why that would be different than a regular school setting for day treatment. I don't know, Angie. I'm sorry, Jesse, if you have an answer for that one.
No, that would be my answer. I don't know why they would
be exceptions.
Be any different, yeah.
And that person that's asked the question, you can call me and we can talk it through so that maybe I have some clarification on really why you're asking, and we can work through it.
Okay. All right. Does the proportional equivalence also count toward classified contracts?
Matt, I'm going to give that one to you.
Yes. Yes, it says that it's considered proportionally equivalent to the 170 student attendance days and calendar days for purposes of a student instructional year employment contracts, and it does not distinguish between classified or certified, that are based on the school term, service credit under 161,500 and funding under 157,350.
Thank you.
Okay. If an original calendar is submitted with 170 days beginning in early August, and we delay school to start on August 24th, would the amended calendar still have to have 170 days? That would not automatically allow us to be in the guidelines of the variable calendar. But I think it would.
If they start after the 24th of August, then yes, they could follow the guidelines for the variable calendar. So if you have originally decide, hey, we're going to start school July 15th, and then right before that you say, well, no, we better wait. Let's start school August 28th. Then you would be entitled to the variable instructional calendar and the waiving of the 170 days, meeting the 1,062 hours of instruction. And then when you amend your calendar and you send that information, you would be, as long as you followed the guidance for that variable instructional calendar, then you're fine. There's no, you don't have to get, it's not that you get approved for it. It's just it's an option. It's a calendar option that you can use. So it doesn't have to be, signed off on before you use it.
And so even if it's that amended calendar, it still works, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are the retirement folks on board with these contract day issues?
I hope so.
I believe they are aware of them, correct?
If the district signs off that they met their contract, then I don't see why, and as long as they're following the variable instruction calendar and the law that goes with it, I don't see a problem. And I'll let Matt finish that answer if there's anything else you want to say about that.
Well, no, I mean, you're exactly right. It's a statutory requirement. So the KTRS and CERS will be bound by what the statute says. So there's not much of a choice in it. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Who would sign off on the home hospital with regard to contact tracing? So in that case above where, the student doesn't want to come because somebody else in the house is contact tracing, they're asking who would sign off on that home hospital.
Wouldn't they have a doctor or physician be involved? If they have someone in the household that is ill, then I don't see why they couldn't sign the paperwork for that student.
Or somebody from the health department or public health official. I don't know how that exactly works, but I'm believing if you're being told not to be in school based on a exposure to communicable disease, that I guess we can try to think through who would provide the notification, but it just seems reasonable that if you've been exposed to a disease and you should not be in school because of a contact tracing event, then there has to be a way that we can come up with somebody to sign off on it. I would suspect it could be a doctor or a public health official. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you get a letter. I'm sure it's just not a telephone call. You probably get a follow-up letter from the health department or from somebody, and that should probably serve as evidence.
Right, and then you'd have that in the file so that as proof, because you can't just say that. You have to have some type of documentation.
Okay. All right, if my math is correct, the minimum number of instructional days to meet the 1062 in the variable instructional calendar would be 152, so long as 25-minute lunch is added on. So hypothetically, school could start at 8 a.m., end at 3:25 p.m. to include 25-minute lunch and meet that requirement. Is that correct? So
yes. Now, I don't know if you don't have recess or homeroom, and you just had a 25-minute lunch, then yes, as long as you have the 1,062, it does come out to 152 days but there's just no wiggle room at all for any other homeroom or recess. Because I don't believe recess is counted in that time because it's not instruction.
Right, and if you made your calendar that 152, there wouldn't be any wiggle room also if there were any type of weather days or anything in there. So
True, that's right.
okay. Now that home hospital teachers do not have to travel, can they have more than 12 students on their caseload? And hey, Matt just put, there you go. Thanks, Matt.
To that. So that part, the 12 student part, is in our regulation. The KRS, the statute, was amended during the last General Assembly and becomes effective in July. It's not yet effective. Once it becomes effective, and we will move to amend our regulation, and that's something we can consider. But to the extent that the existing regulation does not conflict with what will become law in July, it's still effective. So that part, that 12 student case law, I do not see where that conflicts with the changes to the KRS, to the statute. So in my opinion, it would still be in effect.
Even after July.
Even after July. It's not something that was directly addressed by the statute, and we could still say that you are limited to that 12 if we so chose, 12 students. But, you know, we'll look at that going forward. But as of right now, I think that that's 12 student caseload is still in effect.
Right. And we would probably get some input on that from the instruction side, right, before looking
That's right.
at that. Okay. Oh, no, everything just moved. There it is. Sorry. My human resource director states that not working the days will impact TRS and 100% credit for the year. This is first we've heard of the teacher employees giving equivalent hours. When is KDE releasing this guidance in writing?
Matt, that was for you as well.
I don't know
provide
that
the statute.
Right, and I think we've released guidance in some of our Q&A documents that we've gone over. That there's, you know, we've outlined it in some of those Q&A documents, I believe, but I don't know if there's going to be an official, you know, KDE letterhead outlining what is in the statute.
That's right, and I'll provide the it's 157. What is it? 070? Is that right? No, 158 070.
8, yeah.
Yeah, it's 158.
All right. Okay. To come back to kind of clarify this day treatment question a little bit, it said day treatment start dates would have to be delayed if they can't meet the CDC guidelines, correct? And I would think just like other school.
The CDC guidelines are just that, they're guidelines. They're not, it's not law. So they're guidelines that they would, to keep students healthy, but they're just that, they're guidelines.
I think they would need to check with their local Department of Public Health on any plans to open, just like you would for your school district, right?
Right. Okay. If we start school the first week of August, then we are required to close again due to increase in the number of COVID cases. Will we still be required to get 170 days in the 1062 hours?
Yes.
Right.
Because you've started before August 24th.
Now, unless, you know, there was some later following executive order or legislative enactment, which is a possibility if there's spikes or a second wave. But you're exactly right. Until something like that happens, you have to get in your 170 and your 1062 in that situation.
Right. All right, and there's one more variable instructional scenario. Did I understand correctly that if a district doesn't start school until August 24th and completes the required instructional hours in 164 days, teachers actually get credit for 170 days towards their 185-day contract?
Yes, and then so over and above that, they'd have to work their 15 days if they are under a 185-day contract.
Okay. I think I'm trying to scroll back up through here to see. We're having there's one more question about if your school district had the option for families to be in a digital academy instead of coming to school, why would you have students on home hospital? I think there's still the home hospital regulation that students can be signed up and, you can offer to them, but they can still have the choice to do it through the home hospital education, right? Even with those virtual options.
If you have the virtual options, and that's great, but if you have a child on home hospital, they may need that additional, it really depends. A lot of times students are on home hospital for, just various illnesses, other things that are happening with them. They need to be on home hospital so that they have that one-on-one time with a teacher, because that's something that they need, in addition to just being on a virtual class.
Should we distinguish between special ed children that are on home hospital and general ed kids that are on home hospital? I think that's probably an important distinction there, right? That if they're a special ed child, you always follow their IEP.
Right.
Yes.
So if the IEP outlined for them to be on home hospital, you wouldn't just be able to put them into your digital academy because their IEP specifically said for them to go on home hospital.
Yes, you must follow that to the letter.
Okay, I think, make sure nothing has popped up over here.
We have one in the Google
Google
form.
About the high school students? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I just found it. Okay, for high school students, if the variable calendar is used, how will schedules be set up for some students being in attendance and others on the same roster being performance-based? And I think that's
something that we were talking about earlier. We are working with Infinite Campus to figure out the best way to track attendance with all this innovative scheduling. So right now we still have the old system and we don't really have any ways to do it, but it's something that we're working now to get that resolved.
okay. All right, I think we've got through all the questions and we're coming up on our hour here. I will say that somebody has just put in a question that asked about 164 days or 154 days. Don't exactly understand that question and where it's going. So if you just send Rhonda or me an email. Josh, if you can click to the next slide with all of our emails on it.
And I think if they're asking, because I think one of the districts was saying that they really need 164 days to get it all in. And so if you have recess and you have homeroom and you have maybe some other things that are not instructional during the day, it's really difficult to get it done in 152 days. I mean, that is just no anything other than instruction. And so it takes a little bit longer than 152 days if you have other things going on in school. So it's, I think, maybe a little bit more realistic. I think 160 has been about the calendars that I've seen. There were about 162 days with lunch and recess and so forth. I'm sorry, Jesse.
That's okay. Okay, I was going to say, if we have any other questions come in here at the end, we'll get those listed on the Q&A or reach back out to specifically the people if we know who've asked the questions. So, all right, Rhonda.
Thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll hope to be back in 2 weeks again. So we'll have a lot of the questions and things that we couldn't answer. We should have answers to those by then. And as soon as we get things approved, I've got everyone's email address, all the DPPs, and I will get any guidance that's approved and questions that you've asked and we get an answer that's official. I will send that to you through email, and then we'll get back together in 2 weeks and tackle some new things that have come up. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you.